I'm just ferocious against yeast. When I see yeast in the clients, it's like, okay, we got to get rid of it. And other things get better. Hair gets better, skin gets better, moisture gets better, cravings get gone. So all of those things get better when we get rid of Candida.
Welcome to the Healthy Skin Show with Jennifer Fugo, where we're flipping everything you've been told about your chronic skin issues upside down and connecting you with alternative solutions your dermatologist never told you about.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to episode number 15 of the Healthy Skin Show. Today we are going to be diving into a topic that isn't often discussed online because, well, frankly, it has to do with female lady parts and how certain skin rash issues can affect that area. And for many of us, it feels embarrassing to talk about, but I've had enough people message me and ask me questions about this topic privately that I felt like it would be great to have someone come on the show to actually discuss this. And so today's guest, Dr. Anna Cabeca, is somebody who I deeply admire, and she also has experience firsthand treating this condition called lichen sclerosus. So if you're not familiar with it, then no big deal. But for those of you who do have this and you suffer predominantly in silence and in embarrassment, know that there are ways out of this. There are other options for you to try. Now, this whole episode, believe it or not, was inspired by one listener's question. Yes, one listener's question. So the questions that you guys ask of me, I put a lot of thought and time into making sure that I can either answer them myself or find a guest who can answer them for you. So if you ever have a burning question, head on over to healthyskinshow.com, scroll to the bottom of that page, and you will find our voicemail where you can leave us a message and actually get a question answered and potentially even inspire an entire episode. Today's question comes from Sarah.
What is the best way to treat lichen sclerosus naturally, and how do you recommend getting off prescribed steroid cream?
Sarah, I want to thank you so much for asking this question because, as I said, your question is the inspiration for this entire episode. So I hope that I have come through for you in a big way once you get done listening to this episode. And for those of you out there, whether you have lichen sclerosus, you have a girlfriend or a sister or a family member that struggles with this, or your wife struggles with this topic, please share this episode with them because, again, this information is hard to come by online. You're probably not going to find a lot of this on other websites. And this is actually going to be the first of several different discussions that we're going to have on lichen sclerosus because, again, we're looking at all different chronic skin rash conditions and trying to find you the alternatives that you probably haven't heard about. Now, one thing I wanted to mention as far as Sarah's question is concerned is the concern about being on topical steroids and not being able to get off. And whether you have lichen sclerosus or not, many of us have had this same exact either question or fear. Or you've experienced very clear issues where your body has reacted negatively when you tried to come off of topical steroids. Now, I did use them when I was going through my journey with my dyshidrotic eczema on my hands. And I've been very upfront and honest that I am not necessarily anti-medication or anti-topical steroids or anti-even antibiotics. I think there's a time and a place for everything. We just should have as broad of a toolbox as possible because what may work for somebody may not work for someone else. And why not marry two different avenues and get there most efficiently and effectively without causing a ton of damage structurally to the skin, making it more fragile, or leading to some of the other side effects that can happen when you just use topical steroids. Now, I will tell you this, and again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not allowed to ever tell you to stop taking your medication or don't use that topical steroid cream. I never would do that. So don't take that away from this conversation. But know that you are concerned. It's a valid concern, and it's one that maybe you should share with your doctor. I do know as well that there is some concern within the eczema community that there is a lack of appropriate education around how to use topical steroids that will hopefully help reduce the risk of developing what's called topical steroid withdrawal or red skin burning syndrome. So you'll see it phrased in several different ways online. And one of the other things that can happen that people don't realize, aside from even the issue with, say, the thinning of the skin, is that you can also develop red or purple spider veins. You can have skin discoloration or scarring as a result. Or, and believe it or not, this is something there's quite a bit of research on, and I will be actually publishing a post on this at a later date. But there's a lot of research about the fact that those steroids do enter your system and impact your adrenal health. And so for children and babies, the impact seems to be greater, whereas in adults, it's less so. But you have to wonder, if you're on these topical steroids for a very long time, is that playing a role in your body's ability to deal with stress? And so again, I'm going to explore that more in the future. For now, I just want to give you some thoughts that you could either share with your doctor or consider. I also have a really great article about this, why topical steroids can make things worse and what you can do or consider to help avoid the side effects. And I'll share that specific post in our show notes. That way you can go and take a look at it. But a couple of things that I would just say from personal experience, again, this isn't a recommendation, it's just my personal experience, is to slowly reduce how much of the topical steroids you're using and try and space out how often you're applying them. So that way you can slowly wean your skin off of it. That's what I had to do. And again, you can speak to your doctor about that to get some sense of whether that could be helpful. I also used topical CBD oil to help kind of quell the inflammation while spacing out and spreading out the use of my topical steroid creams. Again, that's something discuss with your doctor. If you want to learn more about CBD, I would highly recommend that you check out episode number 14 with Pamela Orth. We'll also put that in the show notes here, so that way you can find that episode all about CBD oil. You want to consider minimizing fermented foods, because sometimes having too much histamines in your system can be an issue. And fermented foods can be anything from like yogurt or lacto-fermented foods like sauerkraut to things that are pickled. So anything on that spectrum may be a trigger, even wine and alcoholic beverages, because again, they are fermented. And then last but not least, if you haven't cleaned up your diet, I would love to assume that everyone has already gone through this process of cleaning up their diet, but let's be honest, we're all in different spots. So if you haven't done that yet, consider at least minimizing things that are inflammatory, like gluten, highly processed foods, refined carbohydrates, and sugar. I'm not saying take all of it out of your diet, though I do generally, as a rule of thumb, if there is one food that I ask clients to eliminate, it would be gluten, simply because it increases gut permeability, allowing for different food proteins and toxins that are produced by the bugs, the microbial bugs that live in our gut, to pass through into your body. And so we want to just minimize what is coming into the system and potentially triggering it and causing inflammation. So those are a few tips. Again, I'll link to that particular article in our show notes. So let's dive into today's interview. Again, thank you so much, Sarah, for asking this question. And I'd love to hear from you. Let me know if you have gotten everything that you need in order to make a better decision about how to address your lichen sclerosus. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Natural Skin Show. Today, I have a good friend of mine who I think she's going to enlighten you in some areas that I think sometimes people, especially women, because this is a women-specific issue. Although, guys, if you're listening, you may know a woman in your life that has this issue. So please stay tuned and keep listening. Dr. Anna Cabeca, she's a good friend of mine, as I said, and she is an Emory University-trained gynecologist and obstetrician, a menopause and sexual health expert and international speaker, and educator. And I also want to add to that, she has an amazing heart. She is actually a really, really good, wonderful, positive person. And I feel very grateful to have known her for the past couple of years. She created a top-selling product, actually a bunch of them. One specifically is Julva, which is an anti-aging feminine cream for women, Mighty Maca Plus, a superfood hormone-balancing health drink, as well as online programs such as Magic Menopause, Women's Restorative Health, and Sexual CPR. You can find her over at drAnnaCabeca.com, and she's all over social media as well. Dr. Anna, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm glad to have this opportunity to bring this issue to light and hopefully some resolution.
I know. So what we are going to talk about today is something called lichen sclerosus. So for those who don't know what this is or might have it and don't, like, they're not even sure what to even ask about it or say, oh, that's what I have. What is lichen sclerosus?
Lichen sclerosus is, a condition of the vulvar tissue. So, it affects our lady parts. It can affect other areas of the body, but specifically when we're talking about it here, it's affecting our lady parts. And this is when the skin gets thin, almost like a cigarette paper parchment type of appearance, a thinning, a drying, and it can be irritated, it hurts, itching, tearing, are some of the conditions that come with it. It's really been a struggle in gynecologic practices to treat this. And currently, it's a struggle for so many women, and this condition seems to be increasing. So it actually affects either prepubertal girls or postmenopausal women the most. So it has this bimodal distribution.
Oh, that's really interesting. So you could be in either category. But so women who are more in that sort of healthy menstrual, well, you should be in a more healthy menstruating, I don't even know what you call those here, pattern, you may be less likely to have this. But my experience has been in working with clients that are more toward the menopausal end. And that was, I've had clients that come to me and I want to share this because I think it's important. They'll talk about how they have these skin rash issues. And they'll go, almost like it's a little bit embarrassing. They'll be like, oh, and by the way, they get kind of quiet about it. By the way, I have this thing called lichen sclerosus. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's kind of a problem, and I don't know what to do. I've tried all sorts of steroid creams and all sorts of suggestions, and literally nothing helps, and it's getting worse. And so if there's anything you can do, that would be great too.
Yes. Yeah. And it is almost like one of those shame, I don't know what's wrong with, something's wrong with my body. It's something wrong with that part of my body. And, I don't even want to bring it up. But my gosh, it can totally affect the quality of our lives, from relationships and intimacy, just sitting down, riding a bike, jogging. All of those things are affected by lichen sclerosus. It just affects our quality of life. It hurts, it's irritated. And that's why I really am so passionate about getting natural solutions to women as much as possible. As a gynecologist, Jen, one thing that we know to treat lichen sclerosus with, it's temporary. There's no cure, we're told, right? And I always say, well, something caused it. We fix the cause, we can cure it, right? So steroid cream, cortisone cream, clobetasol can be used as well. And there's been some studies looking at testosterone with it. It may not alleviate it. So prescription testosterone. So those were some things that we can do. And as a gynecologist, sometimes just putting good tissue back to good tissue can help. But still, if we haven't addressed the underlying cause, it can come back. And the other thing is treating for antifungal, gluten sensitivity, food sensitivities all the way through. That is essential to healing from lichen sclerosus.
Well, Dr. Anna, actually, now that you kind of bring that up and we're veering into, some of the more alternative options, which I was surprised. I mean, of the clients that I've worked with who've had this, they all had overgrowth of candida in their gut. So I have found, I can't say that I have any data to support it personally, but my clinical experience is that there is a gut dysbiosis. So the microbiome internally is essentially off balance. Do you think that there's a connection, just from your experience of something that's similar?
100%, 100%. I always say like the vagina is an extension of the GI tract in a way, right? We have to think the mucous membranes inside our mouth, inside our vagina, very congruent with the intestinal lining. And again, our vagina needs to be with abundant, healthy bacteria. Well, yeast overgrowth, dysbiosis in the gut, dysbiosis in the vagina, all of those things. And then as we get older and we lose those natural secretions, the protective bacteria, that's probably one of the other reasons. And Candida can tend to remain dormant for a long time, can tend to be one of the inciting reasons for lichen sclerosus. But it is, according to our textbooks, it is a mystery. But where I've seen improvement is by healing the GI tract, 100%.
And you know what? This is another interesting thing. And so I want to mention this too. And again, I don't have any clinical data. It's just been, or research, so to speak, but it's just been my clinical experience working with these clients. So, out of desperation, they're like, is there anything that I can do? Because it's so dry and like the skin looks marbled. And I'm like, well, I'm not a doctor. I don't know. And I was thinking about this. And one suggestion that I came up with and saying, look, I really don't know if this is going to help. I'm going to be entirely upfront with you, but it might. So, and they were willing to try anything at that point. And so that was where I thought of the Julva product that you had formulated. And I said, look, why don't you just try 1 month and see how it does? And those clients came back to me and said, not only, and again, I know you can't make any claims or anything. So that we're certainly not trying to make any promises here of what it can or can't do. I'm just sharing my clinical experience. But they came back to me and said that made such a huge difference in just the moisture, the quality of the skin, comfort levels. They were like, I'm not even going to stop this. Like I'm going to continue to use this because it had helped them so much in conjunction with addressing because again, Julva's a topical, so it's not going to fix a microbiome issue, but why, like just from your thought, because I know that you formulated this, like, can you think of any reason why it could be helpful just from maybe an ingredient perspective or anything like that in helping the skin in that area?
Yeah, no, it's so exciting. And I really I was so thrilled to hear that. And there's another Lichen Sclerosus blog going that women have used Julva in it as well. And I was just thrilled because Julva is so hard to treat. Like I said, I have, done surgery to help with Lichen sclerosus. So it is not something we want to do. Yes. Just done, excisions to take out the unhealthy tissue, put good tissue to good tissue, vulvodynia, vestibulitis, all of those conditions are really challenging for women if they have them in the vulva. I mean, again, the consequences on the life-limiting effect that it has and quality of life-limiting effect. So when I started doing more integrative and functional medicine as a gynecologist, and I started treating Candida, increasing the essential fatty acids in their diet, detoxing them, getting them off food sensitivities, gluten, et cetera, we saw improvements. I used testosterone vaginally on them, steroids, and that combination that time seemed to do really well. I didn't even think of Julva for Lichen sclerosus. So when I hear these case stories that, like, my God, that it has improved their life, I am just truly grateful because I know how much women suffer when they have it. So I think there's a combination of things. The plant stem cells from the alpine rose that I use, again, are these amazing, the alpine rose is this amazing rose that grows in the Swiss Alps in the harsh conditions of ice and snow, and it blossoms. I'm like, for me, that is the definition of woman, right? That is the definition. We will face some hard conditions and come out, ideally, we just blossom in our femininity and everything. So the research behind these plant stem cells showed that they are anti-aging, create improved resilience in the tissue, antiviral component to them. And so I think there's that component. DHEA, one of my other ingredients, also helps to rebuild, repair, nourish, anti-aging benefits, lots of good benefits to DHEA. And then emu oil, which I insisted to put in that because when using and prescribing compounded vaginal therapies, when I used and learned about using emu oil from my trips in Australia, the absorption, the results were just better than I could do with any other substitution. So, and that really helps. And then coconut oil, which is antifungal, and then shea butter, which is another emollient, just to help with the tissue soothing and, again, anti-aging, repairing the elasticity, repairing the fine lines, and just really helping from those aspects. We've seen improvement. So,
because I know too, with a lot of the clients that I work with, they're either perimenopausal or menopausal. And so for them, they're just like, oh, like everything just changed, and oftentimes in ways that they don't fully love, let alone like. So to be able to do something that's more natural, that would help them feel, I don't know, more vibrant. And like you said, I mean, having intimacy in your life doesn't necessarily have to stop once you hit like 50 years old or 55 or 60. Like, it doesn't have to stop. It's nice to be able to enjoy that part of your life. And lichen sclerosus really wrecks that. And so I feel like it's almost like a double whammy. Like, you go through menopause and then this, and you're just like, oh, this is awful. And that's why I'm like, this affects your quality of life. And that's why it's one of the, just my experience in my practice has shown me that these things, these changes you can make in conjunction with using Julva it's just had such profound effect. Like, it just changes a woman's life to be able, you feel better, your whole life improves in many respects. So, you're a gynecologist and you've had so many years of experience. If somebody's listening to this and they have this, and they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they're talking about this issue on a podcast. So thank you. And they're really struggling right now. Do you have any words of wisdom or just encouragement for them going through this?
Yeah, I just really think that, number one, don't give up hope, keep looking for answers, and definitely try these things that we mentioned, because that makes a difference. So get rid of yeast. And especially like many women who use Julva for vaginal dryness and leaky bladder, all those issues, will sometimes, again, in menopause, yeast can stay dormant. And so if you get an itching feeling, which you often have with lichen sclerosus anyway, treat with topical antifungals. Use boric acid vaginal suppositories, and that's boric, and typically your compounding pharmacy can make them for you. And this is just so easy, so inexpensive. Boric acid, 600 milligrams in the vagina twice daily for 10 to 15 days, and then a maintenance. So if you have it, typically 10-day treatment will take care of it. But it's a great way, another great way just to get rid of the yeast. Like, I'm just ferocious against yeast. When I see yeast in the clients, it's like, okay, we got to get rid of it. And other things get better. Hair gets better, skin gets better, moisture gets better, cravings get gone. So all of those things get better when we get rid of Candida. Adding in extra essential oils is really important, and not giving up. Keep trying, keep looking for answers, because, again, we're just always on the cutting edge of a solution.
That is so true. And I just want to let everybody know that you have a really awesome website. You've got a ton of information there. It's drAnnaCabeca.com. So you can find anything you need about, you just have a great breadth of information that's
prolific
available.
amount of information.
I know.
So they can go to drAnna.com, making it easy, DRANNA.com.
That is easy. And then you also have a book coming out called The Hormone Fix, which I want to have you back so we can talk about that, because hormones, I think that people disregard, like, we associate hormone issues with acne, but hormones can play a huge role in all sorts of skin issues. And again, I think the idea here is to remember that this is all connected. We are one being. We are one body. So when you have an imbalance in one area, it will spill over and cause other issues elsewhere that are signs and clues that, hey, we have to find those root causes and address that. So I'd love to have you back to talk more about what you've discovered that went into the Hormone Fix book. And I'm so excited for that coming out. But will you come back and join us?
I would love to, Jen. I always love talking with you and catching up with you anyway, and I love sharing this information. Thanks for not being afraid to share on a difficult topic.
You know what? If we're not willing to do it, I don't know who is. And This is about changing your life from a very root place. People suffer. I mean, I suffered for 3 years. I don't want anyone to go through that any longer than they have to. And if I can provide a vehicle for people to get answers and solutions or connect them with people that can, then I feel like I'm playing that role, in my life of being a connector and doing what I need to do to leave this world a better place. And I'm so glad to have you along on the ride with me, Dr. Anna.
Oh, I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. All right. So I feel like Dr. Anna just gave us a ton of information that many of us weren't even anticipating learning on today. But again, this is a worthwhile opportunity to be able to share this with others whom you know who may be struggling with this. And if you're a practitioner, hopefully now this will also give you some other tools. If you are seeing patients or clients who struggle with lichen sclerosus as a primary or one of their many chronic complaints. And don't forget to head on over to Amazon and check out Dr. Anna Cabeca's book coming out, The Hormone Fix. Grab yourself a copy. It's got a lot of really amazing information that will help you not only, like she's talking about burning fat and boosting energy, sleeping better, and stopping the hot flashes, but she's also helping you as a woman who's in that perimenopausal and even menopausal space start to feel better. And a lot of this is connected. The gut, the skin, the hormones. We talk about this again and again and again. The link directly to her new book is over in the show notes. And so thank you guys so much for tuning in. Again, if you have a question you'd love to ask or you would love it to be inspiration for an upcoming episode, leave it over at healthyskinshow.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. Let's see this community really grow and maybe make a promise to yourself that either after today's episode or tomorrow morning, you're going to share this with someone you know who could really use this kind of information in their life, not only to get tips, but also to find hope as well. And so just want to thank you guys so much again for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.